Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Miller. I am your current 2023 president of London St. Thomas Association of Realtors. So we're here today to talk about the very exciting proposed changes to the LSTAR bylaw. So to give you a little bit of background, we have had a couple of other opportunities to hear about the bylaws. So back on March 29th, we kicked things off by sharing the initial proposed bylaw changes and policy changes. And then again, we had our members hear their voice on April 20th as we hosted our first virtual town hall. So we had a fairly well-attended virtual town hall, which we had a bit of input from the members at that point. Then we drove all the way out to St. Thomas and had a in-person meeting at the St. Anne Center in St. Thomas, in which we talked again about the proposed changes to the bylaws and moving some of the bylaws to policy. So we have one more virtual town hall happening on June 15th before we go to a membership vote, which is going to be on the 27th, which will be at the LSTAR AGM. We have a special guest with me, Bill Madder, the CEO of LSTAR. So I will turn it over to him as he is the policy and bylaw expert.
Thanks a lot, Adam, and hello to everybody who joined us in the meeting this afternoon. We do want to talk a little bit. The changes are coming up. Some of them are on because we had to make changes. Many of you may know that the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, also known as ONCA, came into effect a couple of years ago, and it did have a requirement for all nonprofit organizations to comply by October 19th, 2024. With these changes imminent, that provided us an excellent opportunity to do a real review, a full review of our policies and bylaws with the goal of modernizing, simplifying, and reorganizing them. In order to make this happen, we engaged the services of TNG leaders. Some of you may be familiar with some of their principals, Bill Harrington and Gary Simonson, formerly of CREA. We asked them to take a look at our bylaws and policies and provide some recommendations for revisions. At our March Board of Directors meeting, we approved a revised version to go out to members for input. And as Adam said, we had the town hall meeting, and we had another town hall meeting out in St. Thomas. We're going to have one more prior to the AGM, June 27th. But we're also doing this today to give you a bit of a background on what is coming forward at the AGM and what suggestions you might have for it.
Great. Thanks, Bill, for shedding a little light on the background of why we're here today. The great thing is for the first year, I thought ONCA was a new staff member, so it was good to hear that that actually stood for something. So we're going to delve a little deeper and see what the main purpose and changes are for all the members to understand what's being moved to policy and some of the bylaw changes.
So there's a few, I would call them significant changes that are worth highlighting, and we'll be touching on those today. The whole document is pretty substantial, so I don't think we get a chance to cover them all today, but there's a handful of major changes that we want to make you aware of. The first one we talk about is moving operational items from bylaws into our policies. This would allow us to have a little bit more flexibility in keeping these processes up to date, as those policy changes can be made at the Board of Directors level. Next up, some changes to the article regarding committees. We want to enhance our committee structure, making it more adaptable to the evolving needs of our association. Also, some changes regarding expenditures or financial items. The proposed amendments grant the Board of Directors the authority to borrow money and manage the operations of LSTAR far more effectively. And finally, another important change is the modernization of the Board of Directors, how we align our leadership structure with best practices and something that would reflect the dynamic nature of our organization. And finally, just an aside, is we've managed to take the bylaws from the existing bylaws at 52 pages down to a very efficient 19 pages. So that's the main changes.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Can you tell us what has been moved from bylaws to policy, please?
Well, as I mentioned, these largely operational items in nature that would be easier to keep current. Currently, items like fees and dues payment, the membership application process, professional standards and arbitration items, the processes there are all in bylaws. And if we do want to make a modernization or a change to them, that has to go to the members for amendment. And that does require some significant timing and planning and whatnot. And we feel, and actually most governance people feel, that it's much more effective to have those type of items in policy where they can just be adapted and modernized more quickly. As I said, there's some items that just really do belong in policy, like the length of time it takes to process a membership application, how dues and fees, how you pay your dues and fees to LSTAR. Those things really don't need to be in bylaws, and we feel it'll be far more efficient and effective by moving them into policy.
Great. In our conversations and going out to some of the offices, I know we've talked about one of the policies, which was moving the creation of committees to a policy and out of bylaws. Can you tell me why why we think that's an important move forward?
Yeah, I think it is, again, for efficiency and modernization. The proposed new Article 9 will give the Board of Directors the opportunity to create committees, task forces, or other advisory bodies as it deems appropriate and establish their mandates. That's in alignment with most current governance best practices, and as mentioned, allows for a lot more flexibility. Currently, there are all of the committee structure is put forward or currently in the bylaw document. And again, as I mentioned earlier, to make any changes to that, if we wanted to change the mandates or whatnot, we would have had to go to an AGM or go to the membership. So we're going to move those into policy, or we propose to move those into policy, and then we're able to be a little bit more flexible in making changes, adding or removing committees that we don't feel are as effective anymore, but certainly keeping the ones that are active and operating smoothly in place.
And the other one that I'm a big fan of, I know we've talked about changing some of the roles and the titles. So changing the title of president to the chair of the board. Why will you think that that change is needed?
Well, it's again, modernization. Most organizations today, most organizations of our type feel that the chair is more appropriate for the head of the board of directors. President is something that's quite often reserved for private corporations or other that type of thing. But we're seeing most of our common organizations that we see regularly are changing the role of president to chair, and that we just felt it was a good idea to make that change. And potentially, if that's approved, you will be the last president of the LSTAR organization.
And, that's probably the reason I say it's one of the more popular ones. I might not have a lot of legacies, but that might be one of my favorite ones as the last president of LSTAR. One of the other things that we're talking about is giving the board of directors the authority to borrow money in whatever amount, at whatever terms that they deem necessary to manage the operations of LSTAR. I know this is more of a controversial issue, but I think it's one that a lot of people might have some questions on and need some more understanding on why this would be an important change for the board of directors.
Yeah, I think it is an important one, and one that I think our board of directors would take very seriously and very responsibly. It's a situation now where any borrowing decisions would have to go to the board, or go through the board of directors and then on to membership for approval. And also there is a limit on expenditures for non-budgeted items, which again can in some cases handcuff the board in making appropriate decisions or necessary decisions. Again, sometimes in the case of an emergency, we do need the ability to spend money where it needs to be spent. I think you've mentioned in a couple of other meetings a situation with building repairs or that sort of thing. It's really important that the association be able to make those decisions and move forward without necessarily going to the board or to the membership. I think it's really important to stress that the association is in very good financial shape. It's unlikely that we need to borrow money in any significant amounts going forward, but it is something that you never know. And with regard to the expenditures, it's not a case of giving the board of directors carte blanche to go off on a spending spree. They do obviously still have fiduciary responsibilities to safeguard the finances and the assets of the association. So it really just is intended to give them the opportunity, if necessary. And again, it's only for unbudgeted items. So our members will always see what the budget is intended to be spent on. But if something does come up that we do have to, or the board does have to make an expenditure on, they would have the ability to do that very quickly.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. I think we actually have a real life example of when the LSTAR building had a leaky roof, and we had to fix it right away. And the amount that the roof was going to cost was more than what we were allocated to as a board of directors to spend. So we had to go forward because the roof was leaking. But really, we were sort of upside down on that policy because we should have gone to the members to ask the members while the water is leaking into the building, hey, are you okay with us fixing the roof? So sometimes real life examples, which we've run across, do help sort of clarify situations that could arise in that. The other thing is we're talking about what is known as the president-elect or soon to be hopefully the chair-elect, that being voted on in the boardroom by the board of directors. So we would look at electing with our elected members who is the next board of president-elect or chair-elect. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one that has been brought forward a couple of times and has generated a fair bit of discussion. But it's not 100% clear in our current bylaws, but our practice and our current practice has been to have the president-elect elected by the members at the election meeting. That is somewhat off or not in line with most organizations, again, that we're familiar with. And most organizations now would see the importance of having the board of directors, once they are selected or elected to their positions, that they would meet and make a decision on who the incoming chair-elect would be. A lot of good reasons for that, and it's something that in good governance you have an opportunity for the board of directors to see how their peers operate, how engaged they are, and who they think would be a good selection for the next board of directors or the next chair-elect. So that's the one proposal that we really hope would move forward, and it's one that again is in keeping with with good governance moving forward.
And one of the other ones I know we've talked about is with our St. Thomas rep. So we've always had a board of director, or I've always tried to have a board of director that's from the sort of physical location of St. Thomas, that they can represent the membership as a whole, but have a sidebar of what's happening in St. Thomas. So I know we've made some wording changes and to incorporate the membership management system that the member is registered in a St. Thomas office. What does that actually mean at the end of the day?
Yeah, what we've tried to do is just to clarify the existing bylaw, and there has been some, I guess, confusion or disagreement on what it actually meant in the past. And certainly LSTAR is quite happy to have members on the board of directors from St. Thomas, but there was just some question as to what the definition, how do you determine that it is a St. Thomas member? And that's one that we have tried to clarify. Hopefully we've come up with, we did look at a number of different options, and actually the one that we settled on was recommended by a St. Thomas member with some minor variations. So we're hoping that does satisfy the membership, and also is one that is easily interpreted and easily enforced. So the goal is to have at least one of the board of directors from an office in St. Thomas, and we really encourage all the members from that area to participate in the election and hopefully continue that representation.
Great. So as you had talked about earlier, that we've gone from 52 pages down to 19. So we just did a quick, highlight of these are the latest and greatest bylaw changes. So there also is quite a bit more as we're talking about. So if there is any other concerns, where can any of the members find the entire layout of the bylaw changes?
All right. Yeah, there has been a lot of changes proposed. A lot of them are administrative in nature, but there's some things that you may not have noticed and you might want to just take a look at. But there is probably the best way to go to find what actually is the 3-column document that we put together with all the changes. And the 3 columns are the bylaws as they currently exist. The middle column has the proposed bylaws, and the 3rd column has the rationale for that making that change. So that would be, I think, pretty helpful if you are interested in having a look at what those changes look like. And that was posted on May 29th in the Member Hub. It was on Matrix. It's under News and Alerts. There was, I think it was in an e-bulletin recently. So there's a lot of information out there. But I would go to the May 29th version. And go to the LSTAR Member Hub. The most recent version of that is there, also on Matrix under News and Alerts. So I'd like you to, hopefully you take a look at that, and if you have any other questions, certainly reach out to us, and we'll try and clarify.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill, so much for talking about all these in such layman terms, so that we don't have to have a lawyer come out onto our podcasts and explain what we're talking about here. So this was our first podcast. So if it seemed a little clunky, give us a little slack. It was our first. We have a couple of more podcasts coming up. So we have one scheduled for June 15th, and we have another one scheduled for June 22nd. We also have a virtual town hall on the 15th as well. So we have a couple of different options for you guys to see what we're talking about with these very important changes. And we appreciate all the viewers that came out to watch this live podcast.
Yeah, I just want to add, I did forget to mention, but we are gonna add links to the documents. All the documents you need to see will be in the comments for the podcast as well. So feel free to take a look at those when you get a minute. Also, just to note that Adam and I will be going out to a number of different office meetings. If you would like to have us come to your office meeting and talk about this as well, we're open to that. And also, again, email. Mine is bill@lstar.ca. Adam's is president@lstar.ca. We'll probably have to change that to chair next year, but we'll see. But we're open to any questions, any suggestions, any concerns that you have. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, we were at one today, and it was a lot of fun. There was lots of people live. It's nice to talk to people who are sitting right in front of me. It's a little less intimidating to do that, I find. So absolutely, if you want to have the road show of me and Bill come out, we're more than happy to try to accommodate your time on that. So again, Bill, I thank you for your expertise, and thanks everybody who is engaged and tuning in to our podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. See you on the 27th.